What's going on, Inner Nerds? We got a debate today.
Absolutely.
What are we debating, John?
Well, we are going to debate and recap, actually, review the whole deal, The Suicide Squad, which hopefully you've all watched now. Came out on HBO Max, dropped Thursday night.
Which I didn't know.
Yeah, it was like, I got an email Wednesday, hey, it's, preview or something. I didn't even open the email, I'll be honest. And then somebody had posted online, they were watching it, so I jumped onto my HBO Max, downloaded it, and I was able to watch it. It came out in theaters as well, so hopefully all of you Inner Nerds got out there and watched it. If not, we are warning you, spoilers ahead.
Oh, big spoilers.
Big spoilers.
Let's make this abundantly clear. Oh my god, we have two cameras now, guys. We are out there. I do not know which one to look at. Yeah. I'm gonna look at this.
Yeah,
I'm looking at that one. I'm gonna look at that. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm not gonna lie. I wish I saw it in theaters. I did see it on my computer.
Yeah.
I might go back this weekend if we find time and watch the movies, because I think this is those films you need to see in the theaters.
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain films that have to be seen in theaters. I find that most superhero movies and most sci-fi movies deserve that treatment.
Yeah.
You need the sound. You need to be in there in the dark. I mean, I watched it, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I watched it on my phone on the bus on my commute in and out of work. So I did not have the same experience that you guys who watched it in the theater did. But that being said, I still loved it. Steven, you did not. And you texted me as you were in the middle of it that this was trash. I couldn't, like, I was jumped through my friggin' phone.
All right,
like,
so
this is ridiculous tape.
Let's clear the air here. So yes, okay, we all know Mike and I are Marvel fanboys. We all know that.
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
a DC guy. We know that. Robin is becoming a DC person.
All right.
I would never claim to be a Marvel person.
Yeah.
There you go. Ryan is Marvel. I texted. I thought I was halfway through the film. I was not.
Yeah.
I was about 20 minutes in. The opening sequence of this film had such a. It's not really a twist, but when it turns out they killed all the villagers that weren't bad guys.
Yes.
I paused the film and I literally laughed out loud. Like,
yes.
I had to pause it because I had to laugh so hard.
Come on. I mean,
it's not funny killing people.
But these two characters, the way that they killed people too was hysterical. Yeah. They're trying to outdo each other. That wasn't a lethal shot. That was a delayed bullet. And then the guy just explodes in the background.
He got killed with style. And then when Idris Elba opens the tent, he's like, "Sup, dude?" He's like, "You drinking tea?" And then the shirt coughs up the finger. I was like, "Damn it!" It's good. It's good.
It is good, and I think that you were looking at it initially from a Marvel fanboy perspective. Totally. Right? And you don't know the characters, and that's fine. You don't have to know these characters. I don't know all of these characters. I know a couple of them from different villain roles in some of the main properties. Some of them are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because when you go back, Marvel fanboy, and you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a friggin' talking tree. Now, mind you, he only says one word, but you're supposed to get invested in a tree and a raccoon that is a psycho. So it's the same thing. You have these ridiculous characters, but if they're done well, they work.
James Gunn has a history now of doing. He's taking these weird films and he's able to make it work. I'm gonna try to take this side for the sake of the video for debate, just so we have, but I did like the film. I am gonna say I am excited for more, but I'm gonna take this side of contention just so we have some
well, that's okay.
I do want to just run down real quick. Everyone knows this is kind of my aspect of, I love the film side, John as well. So I do want to say it's James Gunn who directed it.
Yes.
It was for a budget of $185 million, which really didn't even feel like a big budget. It did feel like a big budget, but he made it so character-oriented that you didn't even realize. I mean, you saw the special effects and everything.
Right, and I think a lot of that budget does go into CGI stuff. I mean, you have King Shark Nanue. I think is exactly how it was pronounced in the film. And
the cast, too, had expensive.
Well, yeah, you think the cast is probably. And the main villain is CGI as well.
Yeah.
So you have some CGI.
King Shark.
Yeah.
That was Sylvester Stallone?
You didn't recognize that?
No!
It was hysterical that it was Sylvester Stallone.
I can't believe that was Sylvester Stallone. He brought him over from Guardians? That's awesome.
And he was great in that role. And you know, it was fun to watch him try and develop a little bit from when we first meet him. He does. He's trying to, you know, his character, what I want to say, is trying to learn as he goes. And as a, you know, he's never had friends. And he got friends.
Let's rattle off this cast list because it is impressive.
Yes, it is.
Margot Robbie reprising her role of Harley Quinn.
Yep.
Probably she's the longest running probably person in here. Well, the most seen because you also have, well, we'll get to it. Idris Elba as Robert Dubois, Bloodsport, which is interesting. I'm reading they actually did it because he was supposed to be Deadshot, but they're leaving it open to bring Will Smith back.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think they need to.
John Cena as Christopher Smith, Peacemaker, which I don't like John Cena as an actor, but it was a funny character.
It was, absolutely.
A broy Captain America, which is exactly what it was. Joel Kinnaman, who is also the longest running person in this universe, as Colonel Rick Flag. Sylvester Stallone as King Shark. Viola Davis as Amanda Wallace. She did, we'll get to it, but she did such a better job in this one versus the other. Which is not her, I think it's more so the story. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
David Datsmulichin, I'm sorry, I'm butchering that name. As Polka Dot Man, which should not have worked. It worked.
It worked really well, actually.
Daniela Melchior, I'm pretty sure that's French, as Cleo Ratcatcher 2, which I think is hilarious. That had a Ratcatcher 2. Jaya Courtney as Captain Boomerang. Oh, that's right. Now we're getting to the first team. Peter Capaldi. So this is the other team.
Yeah.
Well, the Thinker. That was an important character.
Yes.
I'm just trying to see.
Don't leave out Weasel. I mean, how can you leave out the
Weasel?
His
brother. That's actually Gunn's brother.
Yeah.
I was trying to see if
he always does. For those of you that don't know, Sean Gunn is James Gunn's brother. Sean Gunn is an actor who ends up taking on a lot of the CGI roles for James Gunn in the stuff. When you look at Rocket in Guardians of the Galaxy, that's obviously not Bradley Cooper that's walking around with the CGI suit on. It's actually Sean Gunn, which is really cool that his brother is willing to do all of that CGI acting for him. And he also throws him into the movies, usually in some other role. He did have a role, I don't know if you caught it was really quick. He was in the prison as well as one of the guards. He had a quick line, threw a line out there, and that was in the background. But otherwise, he played the CGI Weasel. Yeah.
All right, let's get into this.
Yes.
So, Suicide Squad 2001. I thought the most interesting thing about what he did.
2021.
2021. Oh my God. That James Gunn did in this was he assumed you saw the first one and didn't bother really getting into, like, he told you like backstory as we went, but we just got right into the film.
Yeah. And me personally, I think all superhero films should do that. Drop us into the film. You want to do some flashbacks to tell a little backstory, fine. But if you spend too much time doing the lead up, you're losing some of your audience, I think. We want to see it, boom, put us in the story, and then feed us little bits as we go. And don't feed us all of it. You don't have to feed us all of it, right? Allude to something, and then don't deliver on that so that we have like an ongoing interest of one of these characters.
So how do you see this? So you were saying this, we were talking about this yesterday. You don't want a DCEU.
Correct. I do not want a DCEU. I'm putting that on the record right here. And we're going to have a blog coming out. You'll see it on our Inner Nerds page, as well as...
drop it the same. We're going to drop it.
It's going out. Yeah, this is Sunday. It's out. So read the blog as well, why we don't need a DCEU, and you'll understand where I come from.
.com/whatever the link is.
Yeah. It will be on there. We'll have a link to it. But we do not need a DCEU. And read the blog, you'll understand why. But so I don't need this to tie into some of the other stuff. You know, this Harley Quinn ties to the Jared Leto Joker. We don't need it to tie into any of the other, right? This can be its own.
But now, isn't it going to be confusing and annoying that we have Robert Pattinson Batman over here, a Titans Batman over here, a Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton Batman over here. Right, like we have 3 different Batmans existing and all technically in the same umbrella. Is that not annoying? You're literally you're technically Batman on our poster. Robin flipped it over there. We have a 4th Batman. I mean, how many Batmans? That's the only Batman we truly need.
That's the Batman we need in the world right now.
But that aspect of it, so like, I understand what you're saying because I got it after this film. And I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. Marvel's doing their thing, and we should have that thing, and then we should have. But there's too many characters everywhere.
Okay, so let's put this out there right now. If this exists in the DCEU, why would Waller call on a Suicide Squad to do this mission? Why would they not just call in Superman to take out this film?
Because they have no problem bringing them up, though. Batman was in the first Suicide Squad.
Correct. And they make reference to Superman, and that the reason they build the Suicide Squad is because of a fear of the metahumans who could actually turn bad. So that was the whole point of having it.
That's Task Force.
Well, yeah, I mean, Task Force X. That was the original Suicide Squad. She explains that that's why they're building this team. But I don't think we need that. It's okay that I really don't even want it existing in that universe. I don't want it because when you get that, why do the superheroes not just come in
Superman would destroy everybody.
Right. Superman could have flown in to Jotunheim and just taking care of the mission that they needed.
Starro would have been done in 2 seconds.
Right. That's it. Boom. Done.
Which makes it less interesting. Less
it does. And that's why we don't need it. We need movies in DC that have stakes. Batman has stakes. He has no superpowers. He is trained. He's smart. He's the smartest.
Are you nodding? You can't be biased as the camera person. You might use better angles over there.
I'm not in this debate.
He's smart. He's rich. And he is trained. That's the whole run of Batman. He's got no superpowers. He can die, and we know that he can die. So I think what really happened here, right? Marvel started developing the MCU
its way,
and all of a sudden Warner Brothers was like, oh shit, we need to do the same thing. And they just grabbed some directors and said, here, I want you to do this. Ultimately ending up with Snyder writing Justice League and then having to have a different cut and everything and how that all dissolved. They did not need to go into the shared universe path. Right. They were fine. You know, nobody complained that Christopher Nolan only had in his Dark Knight trilogy only had Batman in it. Nobody was like, oh, that wasn't satisfying because I didn't see Superman.
We've said this multiple times on the channel. Batman came out, I think 3 months after Iron Man, or vice versa. They came out the same year.
Yeah.
the Dark Knight anyway.
Dark Knight, which is, you know. Yeah.
But to your point, right, I think Warner Brothers is starting to figure it out.
Yes.
And we'll get back to this movie.
Let's get back to Suicide Squad and what was.
I did not think Starro was going to be as good of a character and villain as he was. That was a dark storyline.
Yeah, it was.
The U.S. government's covering it up.
The U.S. government covers up that they found this and they're experimenting with it.
They're taking selfies with it.
and the government of Costa Mesa, whatever this island country was, they're allowing the dictator to just feed his political rivals, reporters, whoever, to
experiment on them.
Right? I mean,
and I love the government topping how they got toppled 3 times.
So in one movie, right? We see it started with this. Actually, 4. We end up with 4 different leaders, right? We start off with this was what sent them down there. The dictator got toppled. The person who toppled that dictator gets killed by Harley Quinn in an awesome sequence.
Yes.
Then the general who takes over and they select as El Presidente.
Right.
He gets taken out.
And he's like, oh, I'm the president now. That last guy. And then the rebels come in.
And then the rebels get it, right?
Like, great. Now,
I mean,
I do think they finally got Harley Quinn right.
Okay.
And maybe not so much, because I don't think she never did anything different, but maybe James Gunn he finally figured out to put her in a better environment for her to really showcase, for instance, the sex scene, where they have this crazy sex, there's a fire, blah, 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 and then she shoots him. I was like, that's Harley Quinn. That's what I imagined in the show, in the comics.
Yeah, she
is Harley Quinn. Not like Joker's little pet, or I was like,
and she did it for a legitimate reason. Like, you have to remember that Harley Quinn is a highly educated, and she's a psychiatrist, and that's how she met the Joker and got turned. So she is trying to help herself get over the problems that she's dealing with. And so when this guy starts talking about what he's going to do, she realizes as a psychiatrist that she's going down the same path she went down with Joker, and she can't go down this path anymore. So she just
so then watches him bleed out and die. I was like, that's the sickest. But I was like, that is Harley Quinn.
And then makes the comment that she likes him this way better because all the evil drained out.
Sick thing. It was absolutely sick. The fact that Starro was like, I don't even know what you would call that
out of his armpits. What
is it ejaculating? Is it like I don't even know if we can say that.
Right? Like what was that?
But like that was because how many sci-fi films where it's like the alien is like no, those are all the same version. This was the first time I saw something that like that's the same version of him. But it like told it and it made sense.
Right.
Like those were all him.
In his consciousness.
Right. And I was like,
he controlled everybody.
And it made sense. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever seen that done, that gimmick, and it made sense.
Right.
And it was so well done. It was done in like 30 seconds. It was really fast how they showed it. Literally they just all, because they all started talking to when they first revealed like what's happening. I was like, with a thinker, I was like, wow, that was so well done. Yeah. That made so much sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, they had the potential for this just to be like the Blob, you know, that's
coming
out and just taking over the city. But instead, they made it, you know, highly intellectual and everything, and heartbreaking almost because the closing line for him is how he just enjoyed floating in space
by himself,
staring at the stars.
Yeah,
and that was what his life was, and they took him from it.
Right. And to your point, I had no idea when he came out if he was gonna be good or bad. Like they did not make that clear at all. And it's almost like, well, you were kind of torturing him.
Right. So when he took out the thinker, you're like, oh, I can totally get that. I mean, this dude's been torturing you 30 years.
Right.
I would have ripped him in half too.
And then he started taking over the city, and you're almost like, well, I kind of get it. Like, I kind of get
revenge.
You're kind of, and then America goes, yeah, we lost that country. Like, they were totally like,
it's an acceptable loss.
Yeah. And the fact that Viola Davis's character just like totally hires the made fun of Captain America version, and
with the toilet seat on his head.
Right. But what about that? Like some of the shot sequences in this. So the first thing I didn't like at all. Ryan, are you outside? I thought I heard some. That's other people. Where the hell is he? But where they were doing like the quick zoom ins and some of the angles were weird, but then like the shots in this, especially the one fight sequence where it's off the helmet and he's fighting.
Oh, that was brilliant, wasn't it? Like you're watching them battle it out through the reflection in his helmet that's laying on the ground. I loved it.
There were some beautiful scenes in this when they first show the polka dots come out, and I was like, wow, James Gunn. You could tell the difference between a great filmmaker and like Taika Waititi and James Gunn,
who also makes an appearance at this.
He did. That was as the like first rat catcher,
like a random. Hey, here's a cameo.
Right. But they're such visionary that storytellers, and I think about this as also as us being filmmakers, amateur filmmakers, all that, as we go make. But when Idris Elba or Bloodsport takes out the gun and just the different cuts and angles to make it exciting and interesting. I'm watching, I'm like, I would have never have thought of those different angles, and then to piece that together, to put that in a creative sense, it's impossible. Like you watch most films, for instance, a Marvel film, they take something out, that's it. This, just to show the gun sequence, they had to think of 5 different shots, and then the editor had, I was like, they really love storytelling. Like you could tell James Gunn really, and Taika Waititi's the same way. They love storytelling.
And they are very visual, just like Tim Burton, right? Very similar in that they use the visuals to really set the mood. Like you don't even realize that they're doing it, right? Like you're talking about colors and that kind of thing, right? So they use the visuals to add to the story, not take away from it. When we talk about when we talk about a Tim Burton, a James Gunn, a Taika Waititi, right? And then you think about a Joel Schumacher,
Yep.
Right? And there's doing it right, and then there's doing it wrong. Because it's totally distracting. All anybody talked about when Schumacher took over was that he put in the cod piece. Right? Because why?
The obnoxious lights.
Everything. So that was distracting from the story, not enhancing it, versus what these three filmmakers do to add to the story or actually make it a character almost. Right? Tim Burton, he sets a mood with his stuff, and you feel it, right? You and I feel like these two new ones are doing the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
I at no point. This is one of the first times in a long time where I thought I was a part of the squad.
Yep.
Like I was in it with them. I had no idea who was going to die or not die. It was you were on the edge of the seat.
That's what makes DC better.
Yeah.
You can kill them, and oh well.
Yeah.
How many people are on that poster are not there at the end?
Almost all of them.
Almost every single one. And that's okay, because that's a story. There are consequences, and there need to be consequences. You know, when you have, you know, somebody who dies and I understand that's how it's done in the comics. This is not the comics. You have to have those separate. The comics do things one way, but the movies need to do it in a different way. You need to make your audience feel stakes, and I feel like the Suicide Squad did that, and I think DC does that in general, but I feel like James Gunn
do it.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
You know, and it's funny, not to get back onto the filmmaking, but now I'm remembering the film more and more. I mean, I literally just watched it, but how each character also has almost its own look, the way he shot it, which has actually not been done in the MCU at all. Where Harley Quinn, especially the love sequence, the way they shot it with the background stuff, Idris Elba was a little bit darker. The way they shot John Cena was always upright and panning. Now I'm thinking more and more of the technique. Each character, wow, imagine that thought process. You had like almost at one point 15 characters that he had to mesh together. That one bus scene, every time they sat together was some of my favorite, because you never knew who was going to assault who. You never knew if King Shark was going to eat somebody. Yeah. You had no idea what was going to happen.
Okay, can I just bring out something though with King Shark?
Yeah.
Outside of Jotunheim, when they're taking on the soldiers, you think he's going to eat that one soldier, but instead
he rips him
in half, and you watch the spine and everything, and the guts come out. That's the fatalities I wanted to see in Mortal Kombat. We didn't get. I wanted that kind of fatality. I wanted somebody's spine to be ripped off from the head. I love that James Gunn brought it in with King Shark, and I loved that it wasn't always just him chomping on somebody. There was also the one where he did chomp somebody's head off, and the eyes were still moving.
And he was chewing on it like a toy. He was chewing on it.
So
I love the fact that they have real reactions. Yeah. All right, this is not a debate anymore. Clearly, I love.
Clearly, I've won.
Yeah.
As I said when we sat down, I'm taking the right-hand seat because I'm going to be right about this.
I actually want to see the film again, and now I want to see it in theaters. But I love how they have real reactions. The way they talk was real. It wasn't this campy superhero stuff.
Right.
I mean, I know they're villains, but the way they react, they're like, oh shit, and they have to go and do it. Like, I love when there's real reaction. That's really good writing.
Yes.
What that is.
Yes.
I agree. But so basically, we're gonna wrap this up, Internerds. I think you all know now. We loved it. Yeah. You should love it too. Yeah. It deserves the Rotten Tomatoes scores it's getting from reviewers.
Huge. 80s, 90s mostly.
Right. So it deserves those ratings. You should go out and see it if you haven't. If you had, please tell us your favorite parts. I'm sure we didn't even touch on all of your favorite parts. Yeah. Please let us know what you think.
See it in theaters.
See it in theaters. We have some big stuff coming up with movies coming out in theaters. You gotta wait and see what we're doing there. But absolutely let us know. If you're not subscribing, I don't know why, but you need to subscribe. You need to be following our social media. You need to check out our webpage where we're going to be dropping blogs. And we're going to get a female perspective in our blogs, because Robin, who is as much a fanboy as the rest of us, will be writing so that we can hear a better perspective, because she's smarter than the rest of us. And she's our Black Widow, because she would assassinate any one of us in a second. And make sure you're following us, subscribing, liking, and let us know what you thought. Till next time.
Peace.